it's just me, Emily. Welcome to my podcast where we explore how to discover your truth, embody your essence, and live a life in alignment with your soul's purpose. Today, I have on the podcast a mentor of mine. Her name is Sarah Jenks, the one and only Sarah Jenks.
Oh, thanks, Emily.
And it's so cool because just about a year ago, I was sitting in ceremony with you in your home outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in your temple. And I was downloading like imagery of snakes and a staff with a skull on it. It was all around death. And I was like, no more. So really, you have really supported me in cultivating my relationship to the divine and deepening into my soul's purpose. And now like I'm birthing a whole new body of work around it. And so this just feels like totally full circle. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
God, thanks for having me. It's been such an amazing journey just watching you become yourself. You know, the best.
From the masks. So, Sarah, I want to start out with just like, what is a priestess? It's such a unique role. So if you can just tell us a little bit about priestesses.
Yeah. So I love that you said it can feel like a unique role now in this day and age. And it didn't used to be unique at all. You know, there used to be so many priestesses, sacred women, medicine women, shamans, wise women, healers. There was a whole spiritual economy. Priestesses were a really big part of community and our spiritual lives. And so it's just really important to me that we're all starting to normalize this role of priestess. And, the way I like to explain is just like a Catholic church has a priest or a synagogue has a rabbi, I am the spiritual leader of a sacred feminine spiritual community. And in our community, which is called the Living Temple, that I lead with my co-founder, Kelly Tavares, we're a practice-based community, which means that things are centered around ceremony and ritual. And it's all based in the sacred feminine tenets or foundations around the cycle of creation, reciprocity with the earth, the foundations of matriarchy, of being a non-hierarchy, and really tuning into these ancient teachings that used to just be like so normal and weaving them back into our daily lives, our spiritual practices. And the reason why I got into this is because, our spirituality and the metaphors and the stories and the folklore that we learn, it impacts our psychology and our sense of self. And it also impacts our politics and it impacts our culture and it impacts systems of oppression. And when the sacred feminine was erased from the planet, it was done in tandem with the uprising of oppressive patriarchy. So, we can get into that more and more, but I say all of that because the role of priestess and standing as a teacher of the sacred feminine is like both ceremonial and I believe like a cultural role, especially in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we ground it down a little bit for our listeners? Like, how would you say that the patriarchy or that patriarchal conditioning still runs so deep for so many women and even the, masculine as well? Yeah, just like how would this be showing up in our lives today that we might not even be consciously aware of?
Yeah, well, I think we're all it's so interesting because when I got into this work, it's sort of, especially as a privileged white woman, it sort of seemed like, and I was taught that women are equal, we have rights, um, like stop complaining, everything's fine, sort of a thing. And I know like that has obviously not been anyone's experience, someone who is a person of color. This was like my experience as a privileged white woman. So what's interesting is that now in 2025, it is like so blatantly clear the external systems of oppression. So I don't think any of us are confused about what's happening like externally from a patriarchal perspective.
Yeah.
Uh, and a big part of the work that I do, as you mentioned, is around internalized patriarchy. So it's the ways as a woman, I'll like speak to the women specifically, that we see ourselves as less than men.
Mhm.
So, any way this is showing up in our marriage, in the workplace, in our own sense of self, in our own sense of self worth or value, in the choices we make around how to spend our time, the beliefs we have around our capacity to to voice our truth, to stand up for what's right, to how we value ourselves in our work and the money that we want to make. Also to our responsibility to each other, to our community, to the world. There's this intense and culturized like sense of like weakness, or it's not our responsibility, or it's not our problem. It is like absolutely our problem.
Yeah.
And the idea of responsibility has been like brainwashed out of us, that like someone else is going to handle it.
Right. It totally has, and I think, I was pretty asleep for a really long time, and then I had, like, a loss that kind of, like, woke me up, but it was just I didn't challenge any of the norms of society. It was always like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go home and, like, stay with my kids, and if I'm not, like, I feel kind of selfish, and I'm gonna say things, that make people comfortable and, like, agree with me." I felt like my life was at stake if I didn't, and then, going through this process of awakening, and then I did your course, which was like, "Holy cow, this runs so deep."
Deep.
Um, yeah, you just start to see it, like, everywhere, and yeah, right now we're seeing the pendulum swinging in the total opposite direction because women are finally like, "LFG, it's time to rise," right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. Okay, so how did you get into this work?
It's a great question. Well, I grew up in a very traditional family in a traditional town outside of Boston, and I grew up going to church, and I was like the classic good student. I went to the number one liberal arts school in the country. I went into marketing afterwards. And then I realized, wow, I do not like having a boss. And so bosses are not for me. And so I started my own emotional eating coaching practice when I was like 24. And I just like I look back at myself at 24. I'm just like, wow, Jenks, that was like really ballsy of you. And so anyway, so I had an emotional eating practice. I was like pretty early on in like the online personal development, personal brand online days. And after doing that for about 7 years, I shifted because I I like checked all the boxes. It's like I had a successful emotional eating practice. Check. I was married to a doctor. Check. I had 2 cute, blonde, curly-haired kids. Check. I had like the cutest, like Victorian condo in the best neighborhood in San Francisco. Like, check, check, you know, and I couldn't get out of bed in the morning.
Mm,
I
yeah.
could not get out of bed in the morning. I would listen to my baby cry from the other side of the wall. I would just pray that he would stop, and it was like I couldn't imagine how I was going to get through the day. I was so depressed. And this tension between how hard I had worked, how I had done all of the right things, how I had checked all the
Mm,
boxes, and I was more miserable than I have ever been. I was like, "Holy shit." Are we allowed to swear?
fuck yeah.
Okay. Like, "Holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with me? Like, what's happening inside that I just, like, couldn't figure out what's going on?" So, I went to therapy. And thank God. And after being in therapy for a couple months, I walked in one day to my therapist's living room and she had forgotten to clean up from like some thing she had the night before. and there were these, like, cool chairs with no legs on the floor. They call them backjacks. I discovered later. I was like, "Ooh, these, like, chairs with no legs," and, like, pillows, and you could smell the incense in the air, and there are these, like, paintings of these, like, voluptuous, gorgeous women and, like, velvet. Like, I would never. Everything was beige linen in my life, you know? It was like, there was
You're
no
sure?
velvet to be found. It was like khakis and pearls and beige linen. And um, I just started to cry and I didn't know what was happening. I had like goosebumps all over my body and I started to shake. And it was like I had seen it before, but I know that I had it in this lifetime. And I looked at her and I just said, "What happened here last night?" And she was very confused because I was in like beige patent leather pumps and pearls and a polo shirt. And she was like, "Oh, well, I'll tell you when you're ready." I'm like, I am ready right now. I clearly was not. And I like kept like every time I went back for therapy, I'd ask more and more questions and I just like fought my way into whatever was happening in her living room. And finally I sat in my first ceremony and everyone was supposed to wear burgundy. I didn't own a lick of burgundy. I think I probably like wore black with like a scarf. No, everyone else was in like head to toe, you know, for and I walk in and to the temple and there's like deep red roses and velvet everywhere and smoke and crystals and statues. And I was just like, this is it.
Yeah.
I never want to do anything else besides like sit in this room doing whatever the fuck is happening here. And I have like a part of me, like I'm like a normie also. So it's like I have a part of my brain, you can relate to this. I have a part of my brain that's like, this is so fucking weird. And
Mhm.
then I have this other part of me that is just feels I'm home. This is the most normal thing that any of us could ever be doing. And so, that was 12 years ago. And going to ceremony was like my secret hobby. I had like a little altar under the bed. I had like a secret bookshelf for my sacred feminine books. This is like hilarious. It's like I'm going to tell you all who I am now. This is like really fun. I hid everything. And and then slowly over time, my like I was like, okay, great. So I'll have the perfect life on the outside and then I'll manage my secret depression with my secret ceremony. And that will like all be fun, you know? And turns out my like picture perfect life started to fall apart. My marriage started to fall apart. My body started to fall apart. My my oldest had intense behavioral problems, and then my business started falling apart. And I was like, well, if the outside isn't working anyways, I might as well just like throw it all away and start over. I mean, not all the way. I'm still with my husband. Things are going great. Like we did throw out our old marriage. We had to create a new one. I'm a
Yeah.
completely different mother than I was. We moved to San Francisco. We bought a retreat center outside of Boston because I just decided that I was going, before I had any proof of concept, that I was going to lead spirituality retreat while petrified, having deep witch wound. Um, like the deepest witch
Yeah.
wound anyone could possibly have. And I'm just still going to ceremony and I'm in this like dance, of the in and the out. And, we can like go on from there, but it was just, it changed me. And
Yeah.
I had no choice. That's what it felt like. I had to follow the call.
Yeah. I love that. It's, yeah, it felt like you had this like deeper part that knew, and then
Mhm.
all of the conditioning and the masks that we wear that are like, no, there's no way I won't fit in.
Mm.
People aren't going to like me anymore. I'm not going to be safe. Right. But what is cool, what I see in your story too, is like universe had its way of showing you by like closing the doors on all these other parts of your life, like that death energy, right? It's
Yeah.
like you shall not pass, you cannot go anymore. And
Mhm.
it just like that's why like even though the universe it seems cruel at the time,
Mhm.
it's guiding you into who you're meant to be. And so,
Like,
yeah, absolutely. And that leap into the unknown, into the void, no proof of concept, so much courage.
can I say
One
one thing about that, Emily? Since I
Yeah.
know you have a lot of entrepreneurs here, the thing that I always want to name that is like so important for me to say out loud is one of the big reasons why I could take the leap was because I had a financial cushion. I had a
Yeah.
financial cushion from my parents. I didn't from my husband at the time, but like within 3 years, I knew that he was going to be a full time physician. So I was never in financial survival. Like, of course, things got really tight, but tight is different than not being able to feed my children.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say that out loud that a big part of the leap is the privilege that I had. And I don't think that anybody should put their family in any sort of like any sort of financial spot that's going to really impede their survival. So I just want to say that out
No,
loud.
I love that. I think that's really important because you can get like, there's a lot of people out there saying, go for it. It's fine.
Go
Part of
for it. I'm like,
it's part of the process.
don't do
And
that.
right. But you have to like, yeah, you have to be responsible, right? And make
Yeah.
sure that you're going to be set up. So I love
Yeah.
that. And there's
And
different ways. You don't always have to
there's
leap. You can transition slowly. And
yeah.
yeah,
And then
which
the
sounds
thing that
like,
I want to say is like, there's financial risks. Like, I didn't have to take any major financial risks that were like real, but I did have to take a lot of emotional risks.
right.
And I think like that's an important thing for people to understand the difference around it. And it's like, what sort of emotional risks can you take? Like there were moments where I was like, is my husband going to leave me? Are my parents going to disown me? Is this friendship going to last? Are my clients going to stick around? And that can feel like death, you know,
Well, and
like
most of those
that-
fears are rooted in death, right?
right.
Indirectly around
Exactly.
like safety. Am I going to still be loved? Am I going to be left alone? Like it's all about our nervous system and how we're attached to the things outside of ourselves. And then death strips it all away. And it's like, I'm going to be okay. And didn't
Right.
you have some sort of a near death experience at some point or?
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah. So, um, that was a really wild time. So I moved to our retreat center in 2007. I'm trying to get like all the early years. I don't even know. I was like trying to do math today, year math. It's just like not happening. But about 4 years ago, so it was like middle of 2021.
Mhm.
Um, I finally decided to become ordained in my lineage. So my lineage is
Yeah.
the 13 Moon Mystery School. Elaine Kalila Dowdy is my mentor. She was also my therapist. So we had been working together for 10 years. I had been going to ceremony regularly, studying the teachings with her, getting training, because I was going to just sort of like subtly weave it into my coaching. And then um, it was really like 2018, 19 that I knew that someday I was going to get ordained and be a full priestess and stand as priestess instead of life coach. So I was like, oh, I'll just like coach is more palatable. People know what that is. No one freaking knows what a priestess is. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe I can help make it feel more normal and approachable. And I got excited about that project. So I decided to become ordained. And I had a call with Kalila. We did an opening ceremony. And about a week later, not even, like maybe a few days, I got incredibly ill.
Mm.
And it wasn't COVID. It was like, this is during COVID, but it
Yeah.
wasn't COVID. I couldn't figure out what it was. And I've never been so sick. So one night I was lying down, and because I had just decided to become ordained, I was like, I'm going to make this spiritual. I'm going to see what's going on with my body. So I was lying down. I put my hands on my heart and I just said, Goddess, show me what's here. And I fell asleep and I had this dream that has never felt more real to me. And I like woke up in a forest and I was at the mouth of a cave And
Mhm.
Mother Mary was at the cave. I knew because she was dressed in all blue. And she walked me in and she laid me down on this marble slab, like the tomb that Jesus was buried in. And Mary Magdalene was there and Salome, Mary Salome. And they started pulling all of this stuff out of my body. And it was at this moment where I was really trying to make this program that I led called Whole Woman to work. It was like sort of stagnant. It was a life coaching program. I just kept trying to push it and push it and push it. My team had sort of ballooned. My like overhead was really high in my business. It was really doing a lot of like plastic on social media. And just because I thought that's what was going to work, I kept really be like, well, if this can just work and I make enough money, then I can relax into who I actually am. This was always my pattern. And I was going through a lot of hard stuff with my friends. I lost a lot of friends in that moment. And I wasn't being very gracious about it. I was just in this like hard, my way or the highway sort of like hustle culture moment in my life. And so they're pulling all this stuff out of me. And then I sit up and I walk to the cave. Mary Magdalene walks me out and she looks at me. And it really, I know I sound crazy, but it literally feels like it was happening. And she said, you have one more initiation tomorrow. It's going to be intense and I will be with you the whole time. And
Wow.
okay, that was weird. I just thought I was making it up. And so I wake up in the morning and I sit up and my son, who was, I don't know, this was 4 years ago. He was like 7 at the time. He said, Mom, do you have a birthmark on your back? And I was like, no. And he took a picture and I had these 2 huge red marks in the shapes of wings on my shoulder blades, on my back. And I knew in an instant that it must have been Lyme. So I went to urgent care to get a Lyme test. And they took me in and they got my vitals. And they came in and they said, we just called you an ambulance because you are in complete heart block,
Holy
which
shit.
I know. And so what happened was 3 of my 4 ventricles of my heart just shut down, stopped working. So you only had 1 ventricle that was going, that was pumping blood in my heart. And it was like hanging on by a thread. My heart rate was like at 27.
Oof.
And so I just like looked at Jonathan and I said, am I going to die?
Mhm.
And he was like, you're not going to die, but you might need a heart transplant.
Oh,
And
God.
Jesus Christ. So the ambulance comes, I'm rushed to the hospital. Um, and I'm just asking, the mayor to be there with me. I had this one really hard night, the first night. Also, Jonathan and I were going through this whole thing where he wasn't around a lot because he was really focusing so much on his medicine and I wasn't feeling like in this non-hierarchy, that we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. It was like I was trying to run this big company and also be the primary parent. And it just wasn't working in our dynamic anymore. And so what happened was the first night I was at the hospital, he left because he was on call at another hospital. And it was this like rupture that we had that like his patients were more important than me. And he realized instantly that that was like not the way. So in the middle of the night, he came back to the hospital. But in the meantime, I was petrified. And I said, Mary, I need you to like give me a sign. 5 minutes later, the nurse walks in and she said, hi, my name is Mary. And I was like, okay, thank God.
That's insane.
It's gonna be insane. It gets weirder. And then she leaves. And in the morning, they have to, they're constantly doing EKGs on my heart. And so the woman came in to do an EKG and she's like leaning over me, because they're putting all the stickers on my chest. And she has one of these pendants that you
Oh
and
my
I,
God. Yeah. I don't have mine on right now. I
I
wasn't.
and I'm like, is that Mother Mary? And she's like, yeah, my grandmother just gave it to me. I'm like, great. And then this is the craziest thing. Um, the next, like a couple hours later after that, my mom came into the hospital to visit me. And she just starts randomly out of nowhere telling me about this musical that she was in high school, Jesus Christ Superstar, and starts singing the song, like doing a performance of the song that Mary Magdalene sings to Jesus. She's like, "Do you know the song by Mary Magdalene?" And I'm just like, "Oh my god." It was wild. So I was in the hospital for 7 days. We did figure out it was like early onset, this is not the right medical term, but like intense Lyme. Basically, like I got Lyme, it went straight to my heart. And but it's like the lineage that I'm in is the way of love, love only love. And here I am with a complete heart block. And I'm like, really? Feels like a lot. But in that moment, I just had another moment of, I've got to stop fucking around. I can't fake it anymore. I can't have one internal life and a different external life.
Yeah.
I need to marry the two. I need to be in integrity. Like the work needs to be in integrity with who I am, who I say I am, my path, what I stand for. And then vice versa, what I'm saying in my work externally also needs to be reflected in how I am with my family, with my partner, with my friends, with the way that I move through the world. And what being in the hospital was just like such a wake up call.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And then
it's
after that, my life completely changed. Just like, I think I fought it because we always fight it for like maybe 3 months. And I got a scratched cornea. My daughter got hurt. You know, I was like really being shown, you can't skip this one. And then after about 3 months, I just changed everything.
I think it's really cool, Sarah, how you had this like mentality of like what's here for me
Mm,
through the health scare and crisis to be like, okay, like I just went through that. And instead of like a lot of people can turn in one direction and say, well, that was really fucked up and
mm,
own this victim mentality. And you were like, whoa, what was I shown through this? And like
mhm.
seeing how those patterns of hiding yourself, your true authentic self, was literally killing you. Like maybe not in the physical at that moment, but it's like that's what we do when we disconnect from our soul and our truth, you know?
Totally, totally. And here's the thing, like, I don't totally prescribe to the idea that we create our reality. You know what I mean? I don't really know how it works, the whole thing, but the what I try to do in my own life is when something hard is happening, I can either be pissed and in resistance or use it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I I try to choose to use it. I think we can do that without getting like caught in the shame spiral that we created it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can still hold the disappointment and the upset and all of those feelings alongside the like lesson or where it's guiding you. It's not about just bypassing that. But
Right.
yeah, I totally agree. And so you've been talking a lot about these like images and downloads and like seeing Mary Magdalene and some have come through you through these like moments of like being on your deathbed. But I want to get into like how are you cultivating a space for that through ceremony and like what's actually happening? Like what and I mean a lot of it is a mystery, right? But like I mean the ceremonies that I've done with you, like I've had similar downloads where I'm just like what in the fuck? But it's like so clear the message.
Yeah. So what I'm trained to do is hold a certain vibrational frequency in a room or through the internet. And we do that through using our presence, like my personal presence and body. We use that through working with specific archetypes, by using color, by using different tools like smell, candlelight, the elements, because everything is physics, right? So, this is what's cool about ceremony is that it's just the physics of sound, light, and perception. Color has a vibrational frequency, sound has a vibrational frequency, light has a vibrational frequency. So it's like our voice, our body. And we can create environments where these waves of frequency that you literally can measure become harmonious and evoke a certain feeling or evoke the frequency of our soul, because all of our souls vibrate at a different frequency than our personality. And our personality is often, you know, brainwashed, nurtured. Um, our personality is taken in by the sum of all of our lives and all of our relationships and everything around us and everything. But our soul, I believe, remains mostly like untouched. And so if we can be in an environment that's vibrating at the frequency of our soul, we have access to a different wisdom and a different voice and a different language. And for some of us, our soul's language is in symbols,
Mhm.
And so we can, when we're in that place and we're quiet and we close our eyes and we go inside, we can see symbols. And a lot of these symbols are universal, like the staff is universal, the snake is universal. Um, I have a lot of priestess sisters who see sacred geometry. That's like not necessarily one of my tools. Some people feel temperature or just see color, or they see things archetypally through different human archetypes or animal archetypes or plant archetypes. And we can learn how to decode the symbols of the soul. It's very similar to the symbols of dreaming,
Mhm.
right? It's like dreaming awake is a part of the process. But really at the end of the day, it's physics.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
think is so cool. But and like what's so cool is like also Catholic cathedrals are also physics. Like Catholic cathedrals are based in sacred geometry and color and smell. And the priest is trained to hold a certain frequency. Like this isn't new. I mean, this came before. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like priestesses like far, far predate Catholic priests. But it's not as like weird as people think it is. We just sit in a circle instead of in pews, and we're talking about sacred feminine principles instead of sacred masculine principles.
Well, and it's only weird because it was made weird, right? Like,
Right.
as part of the whole, like, rise of Christianity and
Yep.
patriarchy, yeah. And I just wanna name that I feel like one main distinction is being raised Catholic, and what I found so refreshing about your work, you were, like, the first person I went to, and I was like, like, the world of spirituality is so vast, and I was like, "I need someone to guide me here." Like, there's
Mhm.
just so much to cover. Um, is that it really is you are allowing people to create their own relationship with the divine and, like, understanding what I know to be true as Emily Bingham,
Yeah.
as opposed to what the church feels is true and how you should behave in order to reach salvation, and I just wanted to name that as, like, a
Thanks.
it was huge, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we really believe that we're just here to create the ceremonial environment for people to have their own relationship with the divine. We're not here to tell people what to believe or how it works. Cause like, I have no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I believe what I believe, but I do believe in ceremony.
Yeah.
And I think it is a really powerful tool.
I completely agree, and, there's, like, 2 directions I wanna take this, but I think one thing I just wanna name is I've heard you talk about Dr. Lisa Miller before and just, like, why because I remember when I was starting my spiritual journey, she was the one who got me into it because I was like,
Awesome.
"Any of this shit exists? Like, I don't know. It's all a mystery," right?
Yeah.
The data showing just what, having some sort of a relationship to the divine and a spiritual practice can do for me in life to withstand hardship, and access that inner resilience and faith that things are going to be okay. Like, I think that's where it really becomes supportive. And then, yeah, and figuring out who am I and what is my soul's purpose. And so, I wanted to dive in a little bit to Samhain just because that's like the time of the year. And I'm super into all the death work right now. And one thing else I want to name is like when all those things came through for me in ceremony, you do go through this process of like decoding exactly what does this mean? And it took me, it's been like the bulk of the year kind of being in resistance to it
Mm,
because the conditioned part is like, no, I'm done talking about death. And then when I really start to sit back and put all of the puzzle pieces together, it's like, this is exactly why I'm here. It's so cool.
it's so cool. Yeah, usually I find that our lives are like a big treasure map.
Yeah.
And often we have to like get a few different treasures in order to make sense of the whole story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And they're not always treasures at the time that you get them.
Oh, not treasures at all.
Right? You're like, what the fuck? But with time, it all you connect the dots and it does make sense. Okay, so Samhain, tell us a little bit about this time of the year, and even if you want to, like, I'd love to hear about maybe like the Queen of Death or just the archetype of death, and like how do you use that in your work?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I used to feel super resistant to death. I identified as like a happy person, as if death like isn't happy. You know what I mean?
Well,
Um,
yeah.
And so I think because I identify as being witchy, but I don't identify as like being goth or Wiccan, I had this resistance to death. Get it, Emily. It's so good. And I've been on a really beautiful journey of it because I had two of my grandparents die in the past couple months.
I'm sorry.
And thank you. And I have two more that are still alive and they'll probably die soon. And one of my best friend from growing up, her dad just died. And those three funerals that I've gone to in the past couple months have been the best days,
Mm,
because death really shows us what matters the most.
mhm,
And there's nothing that brings me more joy than to like be on this knife's edge, this threshold between death and rebirth. And when we come to an ending of something, and I'm in like a really big ending
mhm.
right
Huge.
now. We're closing our Holy Woman community um and opening the Living Temple like literally in the next 2 days. I'm like in this portal right now as we're talking. Um I'm having a moment of also being able to like really take stock of this incredible community that we have created together. And so Samhain is an honoring of when the veils are thin, when we can feel like death and rebirth in the same moment.
Mm,
And I just like I love it because there's so many layers to it. But in many different traditions around the world, it was it was the night that you could talk to your loved ones that were on the other side, where the veils between, like, the embodied realm and the spirit realm were super thin that you could, like, almost, like, reach out and touch your grandmother and just, like, be in community with the dead. And it's also a really beautiful well, also when we think about death, and I know you've experienced this, it's an opportunity to, like, look at ourselves and say, like, "What needs to die in me?
mhm.
And where am I still hiding? Where am I pretending to be someone I'm not? And how can I, like, walk the edge a little bit more? How can I be an edge walker? If I only had a certain amount of time to live, like, how would I be? Not
Yeah.
necessarily how would I spend it, but, like, who would I be? And I love that we also see this, like, in the expression of Halloween. So, usually around these, like, sacred holidays, there's always, like, a secular counterpart that has, like, some, like, whiffs of the original. Um, and I love that Halloween is a time for people to, like, express the parts of
Mhm.
themselves that
Mhm.
they wouldn't normally feel comfortable expressing. It's like this free pass,
Yeah.
and as if we're all gonna die tomorrow, And I love that. And
Yeah.
it's very Scorpio. I'm a Venus in Scorpio, so I try to live my life like that a little bit more these days. Um, but And so Samhain, in I think it was in Germany, in pre-Christian times, people would carve out faces in rutabagas because
Mm,
they didn't have pumpkins in Europe. Pumpkins are a Turtle Island, North American crop that we learned how to grow from the Native Americans. But in Europe, they would take rutabagas and carve little faces so that if any like bad dead spirits came to the door, they would think that the dead people are already there and they have to go bug somebody else. And they would also leave offerings on their doorstep of food, of candy, for their deceased loved ones. And so that's where we get the tradition of trick or treating. And oftentimes people would dress up as like ghosts or dead people to confuse the spirits,
mm.
or to make them feel like they're in great company and they can just like come hang out. So I just think it's so fun because like some people will see it as, oh, well, like they erased this sacred feminine holiday. I'm like, I don't know, like, what if they were preserving some elements of it so
Yeah,
that we could like open this treasure chest
yeah,
and have some familiarity and like pull from some of the things? And like, what if we have all been getting like a small dose of the goddess every Halloween
I love
growing
that.
without us ever really knowing it?
I love that so much, and it instead of pivoting it, like, as us versus them, it's like, "Well, no, how can we all just win from this?"
Like,
Yeah,
totally.
that's beautiful, and yeah, I obviously agree so much with what you had to say around, like, living on the edge and kind of flirting with the impermanence of life because we just really don't
Right. Yes.
know. Yeah, and just there's so much, medicine when you can really see death as, I mean, so many different ways, like, physical death is one format, but then also just all the metaphorical deaths that you go through and the, like, archetypal energy of it just in endings and launching yourself into the unknown. It's really, really powerful stuff. So, I have one more question for you, and that is, what is the role of this work? Like, how do you see it in terms of, um, supporting the collective and birthing a more beautiful world? Like, right
Yeah.
now, you can see the systems are all dying, they're collapsing, so we're all collectively in a portal, and
Yeah.
what is your role? What is the vision for your work right now?
Yeah. So this is really the reason why Kelly and I decided to close Holy Woman and open the Living Temple is because there's this sort of like belief system in personal development. I know you and I have talked about this before, that it's like if you work on yourself enough, the world will change
Mhm.
by just like being a vibe. And or like if you work on yourself enough, or you like make enough money, you'll just like naturally help other people and give it away. And I actually didn't see that happening really 100% of the time. I didn't see it happening in me.
Yeah.
Like I was getting into a pattern of like, why am I not naturally wanting to like really get out there and be in service? Oh, it must mean that I need to like heal more or like make more money or
Mm,
like keep working on myself. And if I just keep working on myself, then like maybe that button or that switch that like everyone seems to talk about where I'm like going to start being helpful is going to like happen. And then I was like, wait a second, you know, and I mean, it was really Kelly. Kelly was like, what if it's just not gonna happen? What if we just have to freaking do it? Like, oh, right. You know? So basically, like, I've been doing this personal development work and then turning into ceremonial work. Kelly comes in from an advocacy background, like systems advocacy. And we put our heads together and really had to be with her experience of being in a nonprofit and have like really being in service, but feeling completely burnt out and miserable doing it. And me feeling like very resourced and not feeling helpful. And how do we take these two poles and actually bring them together and be in the truth that the whole point of the sacred feminine is equality. Like the whole point of the sacred feminine is about systems of healing. And yes, us as an individual is part of the system. We don't stop doing inner work, but we have to really understand from the beginning how our inner work is related to
Yeah.
our outer work. And we have to like walk these two things together all the time instead of like doing one before the other, either way. You know what I mean? Either direction. So the living temple really takes these two concepts, and we have the temple, which is where we hold ceremony, where we do inner work, where we do our shadow work, where we commune with the divine. And then we have the agora, which is the Greek term for the town square. And it's where we really think about how do we take what happened in ceremony and we walk it into the world. We take our remembrance and we turn it into response. And we think about where am I called to be in service? Where am I called to be in action? Where am I called to create something? Where am I called to protect something? And
Yeah.
everyone's going to have a different expression of that. But we wanted to have the container feel complete, like a complete support system, because there are so many people who deeply want to help, who feel super called, and they want it to be rooted in their like deep connection with the earth, with each other, with the divine, and to be with other people who are in love, who want to do something about what's happening. And so I'm so excited about the temple. And one thing that's really so special about it is that a really big tenet of the temple is to create local community. So we're creating systems and structure for people to um first of all like meet each other, meet other members, be encouraged to meet other members in their local area, to do ceremony together, because I live stream the ceremonies from my home temple, to do ceremony together, to do service projects together, to help each other out, be in community. And like community is different than friendship, I want to say, right? We don't always want to be friends with our community, but there's like a special thing around like, having a crew, especially when it's like a crew of like super smart, spiritual, revolutionary, badass women. Like
Mhm.
nothing,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
nothing better. And then also encouragement to like create community around this. Because I feel like so many people are already looking for it. We don't have to change anybody's mind. We don't have to tell people they need it if they don't want it. But I know there's so many people who are already looking, and we just want to say, we're here.
Yeah. I love this so much, Sarah. And just so you guys know, I'm going to be a temple guide here in
I know. So
Denver. So hosting Sarah's ceremonies here. So hit me up if you want to join. We'll drop the link. But yeah, I think I have loved this call to action around like there's something more beyond just the what's in it for me.
yeah,
And even in my own work, like it's just made me think about just more broadly, like how can I help? And like this was the first time that I started speaking out on social media about my political beliefs. And you need the inner work because I lost like 600 followers, like 700 followers the first day I made a post about it. And
no,
into your nervous system, again, going back to like witch wound and feeling unsafe, like we need these practices in place. And I love the idea too of having a community, especially in times like these. I feel like I've been noticing I'm like waiting for someone to save me. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to pull us out of this? And you can feel vulnerable doing it alone. So having that community of people to support you, and we're all probably, showing up in different ways, but like we have that same collective vision that's rooted in love and equality. And yeah, I just think it's I'm so glad you guys are doing this because I don't really see anyone else um, launching something like this, and I hope that
no,
it catches on in the
me
coaching space
too.
where people have influence. And yeah, like I really, I see you and Kelly as like such trailblazers in this capacity. So
Thanks, Emily. I
yeah,
mean, me.
absolutely. Well, Sarah, where can my community find you? Just share a little bit about like where I can direct them to, and we'll drop any links as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, go to thelivingtemple.co and join the temple.
Yeah.
We would really love to have you. It's like, you know, goddess church.
Yeah.
And it's the best. The community of women are just unparalleled. We do really deep work. We have a great time. We're super supportive of each other. It's really beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. And if you can get a chance to get in person with Sarah for a ceremony, I know you have some retreats coming up too. Like,
Yeah.
highly, highly recommend. It's been life changing for me. So
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, we have 4 retreats in 2026. They're at thelivingtemple.co. There's nothing like in person.
so good, so
Yeah.
good. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your
Yeah.
time. I know you're a busy woman, and I just appreciate like all of the knowledge you shared with us and everything that you continue to do. So, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Emily. You're the best.
All right, thanks, friends. We'll tune in to another episode soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening in to It's Just Me, Emily. I hope that you enjoyed the show. If you did, it would be a great honor if you could subscribe and then leave a review. And if you do so, I will send you a beautiful hardback copy of my book, Love and Grief, to the first 20 people who subscribe and leave a review. When you do that, it just helps my podcast get boosted and more people will be able to come in and view the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you in another episode.